We all have dreams, but dreams by their very nature can be difficult to achieve. That's where Access Credit Union comes in. Whether it's going to college, owning a car, or building your dream home, your local credit union can help you to fulfill your dreams. Access Credit Union, funding dreams for over 50 years.
Close your eyes and pull like a dog.
And a new Irish record for Phil Healy, 22.99.
Christy Cooney hands over the Sam Maguire Cup to Graham Canty, Cork All-Ireland champions for the 7th time ever.
Hello and welcome to the Star Sport Podcast. My name is Jack McCarran of the Southern Star, and I'm joined as always by Star Sport editor Kieran McCarthy. Before we kick things off, I'd just like to give a gentle reminder to our listeners and viewers to please rate, review and subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify and YouTube. The Star Sport Podcast is brought to you by Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union pride themselves on delivering for their members. Speak to them today about funding your dream. Access Credit Union, funding dreams for over 50 years. On this week's podcast, we're chatting to Shane McCormack, the Wexford-man who has played a key role in Phil Healy's rise to the top of Irish athletics. Phil will compete for Ireland in no less than 3 events at the Tokyo Olympic Games, which kick off in less than 10 days. Sticking with the Olympic theme, we're also going to give you all a sneak preview of episode 3 of the Southern Star's Big Story series, which will be available across YouTube and all the major podcasting platforms from next Tuesday. Inside Ireland's greatest rowing club tells the story of Skibbereen Rowing Club and how it has produced so many Olympians despite its humble stature. And we'll do all that in just a moment, but we have to start with Cork's Munster semi-final win over Limerick at the Gaelic Grounds on Saturday. Kieran, far from as dramatic as their Munster semi-final win over Kerry last year, but they're back in the Munster final again, so I'm guessing you're going to tell me that it's all hunky-dory on the Cork inter-county football front.
Cork got the job done last Saturday, Jack, but it was far from spectacular. This was a game where Cork struggled for large parts, and they won by 8 points in the end, but it was a unflattering 8-point win, and probably a bit harsh on Limerick, who huffed and puffed but just didn't have the clinical edge to really punish Cork. Limerick needed to score a goal the last day to beat Cork, and they had one chance in the second half. 48 minutes in, Danny Neville got inside the Cork defence, but he basically shot across the goal. They were 6 points down at that stage, so it could have made an interesting second half, but truth be told, like I said, it was unconvincing by Cork, and it's not going to send shockwaves reverberating across to the kingdom ahead of the Munster final on Sunday week. Kerry will go into that game as huge favourites. If you can see why. They're if you think back to what happened at Páirc Uí Chaoimh last year when Cork caused a huge shock against Kerry in that Munster semi-final, that hasn't been forgotten in Kerry, and most players have been reminded of that a lot. So that's in their minds going into this game. And obviously Kerry want to win the All-Ireland too, but I think Kerry want to send out a message to Cork and everyone else ahead of the All-Ireland series. But the danger is that Cork can catch Kerry like they did last year. But this is a ground, Fitzgerald Stadium, where no team has beaten Kerry in the championship since 1995. And I know Cork were the last team to do that. But it's an unbeaten run stretching, what's that, 26 years? That no team has tried. And Cork have tried 13 times since then. They've played in the championship in Killarney, and they haven't beaten Kerry. And I didn't see too much, to be quite honest, up at the Gaelic Grounds last Saturday to fill me with much hope that Cork are going to cause a huge surprise, because they really need to up their performance levels big time if they want to pull off a shock.
But just on those performance levels then, Kieran, because I unfortunately haven't been able to see the match in full yet, so I've just been going off what I've read online, whatever clips I could get my hands on. And one thing I did pick up on were the player ratings in the Echo, which were largely positive. There were a lot of 7s, there were a lot of 6s, there were a lot of 8s. There were very few 2, 3s and 4s, so nothing like you'd expect to see in Lake Keep. So largely positive, but the kind of vibe you're giving me was that despite the 8-point gap, there wasn't actually that much in it at all. So in terms of performance, who actually did play well to your eye? You were at the game.
Well, Cork were the better team the last day. Like I said, if Limerick had forwards that could really trouble Cork, it could have been a tighter game and it could have been a real banana skin for Cork. Cork had the better players, but a lot of Cork's better players didn't give their best performance on the day. And it tells you a lot when Cork's top performers were from the defence. Sean Meehan had a pretty good game again. Daniel O'Mahony at full back is really kind of settling into inter-county football, but the huge test for him is coming up in Clarny on Sunday week. But before he went off the last day, he was quite good. Sean Powter, again, was quite influential, especially at the end of the first half. He kicked 2 points that sparked a rebel rally that gave Cork a 4, 5 or 6 point lead at half time. That was flattering as well, because that first half was instantly forgettable. It was poor stuff, to be quite honest. So you're looking at, like I said there, Sean Powter, Daniel O'Mahony, Sean Meehan, Keane Kiley, who came off the bench, did quite well in the second half, and he kicked 2 points. If we're looking offensively, John O'Rourke finished with 1-3, but it wasn't a great game. He didn't play that well. Brian Hurley kicked 6 points, mostly from place balls. And it tells you a lot when Brian Hurley's first point from play came in the 67th minute and only 2 Cork forwards scored from play throughout the entire game. So there really is a lot of room for improvement if Cork are going to go to Killarney and pull off the shock of the championship.
Well, you mentioned there the performance of the Cork backs being Cork's best part of the game. Essentially, the Cork defence were the winning of the game. But as a defensive unit, they're going to have to really raise their game, you would imagine, against Kerry, because the forward line at Kerry's disposal, no disrespect to Limerick, is different. They're playing a different game, almost, to use a cliche. So as a defensive unit, how did they look? Because I know you mentioned at times against Westmeath, they were holes popping up across the Cork defence.
There were more than holes popping up that day against Westmeath. I'd say if I got on the pitch, I could have probably ran through and got a point. That's how open that Cork defence was that day. And Rowan McCarthy touched it after when we asked him about what he made of the Cork defensive performance against Limerick. And he said, well, it wouldn't be that hard to be better than they were against Westmeath, because Westmeath scored 25 points against Cork that day. 14 of them came in the first half, and I think 11 or 12 of them came in the first quarter alone. And that first quarter was as poor defensive display as I've seen from Cork in a long, long time, because there was no pressure from the Cork defence on the Westmeath runners coming through. There wasn't a hand being laid on them. There wasn't a shoulder being put on them. And the Westmeath forwards and attackers were scoring points without any pressure whatsoever being put on them. So a plus from Cork the last day is that they conceded 11 points in total. And Rowan McCarthy made the point that they've been working on their compactness over a couple of challenge games since the league. And they did look a tighter unit defensively, but you don't want to be so tight defensively that it's to the detriment of your attack. So that's something that Cork need to find the right balance before they head to Killarney. A concern, and it's been a feature of this Cork team over the last couple of years as well, that they seem to give away a couple of soft frees. They did it against Clare in the league in Ennis back in May, and Limerick got a couple of handy frees too the last day. And when you want to pull off a shock in Killarney against a team that haven't lost in Killarney since 95, the last thing you want to do is give flat points to Sean O'Shea to tap over from 30-35 yards. Like the Cork defence need to be really, really disciplined against Kerry. They need the performance of their lives, really, if they want to pull off a shock. And they can't afford to concede any soft frees. And it's very important too that the likes of Daniel O'Mahony and Sean Powter are fit. They both came off with knocks. Well, not knocks is the wrong word, but they both came off against Limerick, and they were taken off at the right time before their injuries got even worse. So it looks like they'll be okay to play against Kerry, and that's quite important, because Cork have already lost Kieran Sheehan in attack, and they've lost Cathal O'Mahony and Cillian O'Hanlon before a ball was kicked this year. So they can't afford any more injuries if they want to caused this huge surprise in Fitzgerald Stadium.
Well, we're going to park the football in just a moment. I just have one more question for you, but just to flag that we will have a full Munster final preview on next week's edition of the Star Sport podcast. But just to wrap up, we've spoken about the Cork defence. You've spoken about the forwards that are missing or will be missing. They've retired, etc. Long-term injuries. Only 2 Cork forwards scored from play. I think I have that stat right. You can correct me if I'm wrong. So that's just not good enough when it gets to the business end of a Munster championship or any championship for that matter. So to your eye, what needs to improve within the front 6 if they're to cause Kerry any trouble down in Killarney?
Where Cork have profited against Kerry the last couple of years when they've met in the Munster Championship is when Cork run at the Kerry defence. They've punched holes in that Kerry defence time after time. I'm thinking of a couple of Munster Championship games up in Páirc Uí Chaoimh in recent years where Cork have scored goals against that Kerry defence by running at them and creating goal chances. Against Limerick the last day, they did not punch holes in the Limerick defence. Limerick dropped a lot of bodies behind the ball, and Cork they reverted to this slow, laborious type of football where it allows the opposition to file them in back behind the ball. And Cork football teams in recent years have had an awful problem trying to break down packed defences, and it was the exact same the last day. I don't think Cork once popped the ball in over the Limerick defence inside to Brian Hurley inside there, or inside to John O'Rourke, or just to try and get past the wall of Limerick bodies. So I think Cork need to run. They need to punch holes in the Kerry defence. You need Rory Deane at his very, very best, because he's a very powerful runner. They need Ian Maguire powering forward. You need those powerful Cork runners, even Sean Powter coming from deep with the ball, punch holes in that Kerry defence, and then take the right options, kind of hit Brian Hurley inside there fast. Find John O'Rourke. John O'Rourke has had a great campaign so far. Like we said earlier, he got 1-3 the last day. He was one of Cork's top performers during the league. He's a man bang in form. So find him. But Cork need to be quite clinical the last day. You're right. Only 2 Cork forwards scored from play. And like I said earlier, Brian Hurley's first point from play was the 67th minute. So up till then, only 1 Cork forward, John O'Rourke, had scored from play in a championship game against a Division 3 team, Limerick. And now you're going down to play the second favourites for the All-Ireland on their home patch, and they haven't lost in Fitzgerald Stadium since 1995. So it's a day where Cork need to pull a rabbit out of a hat. They did it last year in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. We can't forget that. But can lightning strike twice? It's a big ask.
It is a big ask, and for better or worse, I don't think we're going to see Mark Keane parachuted in at the last minute, because as far as I know, Australia are under some very tight COVID restrictions at the minute. So that's unfortunate. But as I said, we will have a full Munster final preview on next week's podcast, so keep an eye out for that. We're going to take a quick break now, but coming up next, we're speaking to Phil Healy's coach, Shane McCormack.
The Star Sport podcast is brought to you by Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, funding dreams for over 50 years.
Ireland's fastest woman, the Ballonine Bullet, and now a soon-to-be multi-event Olympian. Phil Healy has been creating history throughout her athletics career, and in under 10 days, she'll finally get her chance to test herself on the biggest stage of them all, the Olympic Games. One of the key figures that has helped her reach those heights is her coach, Wexford-man Shane McCormack. Rarely does Phil give an interview where she doesn't name check or credit Shane for the work he's done with her, so we're delighted to be able to chat with him today as the Olympics tick ever closer. Kieran, tell us a little bit about Phil's relationship with Shane before we hear from the man himself.
This is the dream team, the Shane McCormack and Phil Healy together. It's just magic on the track. And in fairness, their personalities are very similar, and it just works so well together. They both have a tremendous work ethic, and they both know athletics inside out. And Shane is an incredible athletics coach, but it's worth remembering that he does this on a voluntary capacity. Shane has a full-time job and a family and 3 kids at home, and he's then an athletics coach on top of that. And he's heading out with Phil on Friday to Tokyo for 3 weeks. He spent 4 weeks at a training camp in Spain a couple of months back as well. So the man's dedication and commitment and love and knowledge of athletics knows no bounds. And he's a very important character and part in Phil Healy's rise over the years. it was actually back at the end of 2013 when Phil actually searched out Shane to coach her. He'd coached, I think, in 2012 these Munster regional development panels, and Phil was part of that. And they I think Phil was 17 at the time, maybe, and he would have seen her in action and he would have known her talent and so on. But she was being coached and banded at the time. But it was in the end of 2013 where Phil herself felt that she needed a new voice, a new direction if she wanted to be quite serious about athletics and take her career to the next level. And she actually sent Shane an email in late 2013 where she asked him, will you be my coach? And he did. He said, yeah. It was a risk on both parts for her to go to Shane and for Shane to say yes to her. But as a gamble, that's paid off because the strides that they've made over the years is incredible. And a lot of that at the start was the 4 years when she was in UCC, it was remote coaching. So Shane was based in Waterford IT and Wexford, and he was coaching Phil remotely. She wouldn't get up too often. But when she moved to WIT in Waterford, I think it was 2018, things just took off to a whole new level then. And we've now got to the point where Phil, like we said before, she's the queen of Irish sprinting. She's held the 100 meter and 200 meter records. She's set so many different records over the years. She's inspired so many. And the fact that she's now the first Irish woman to ever compete in 3 events at the same Olympics. And it's incredible testament to her and her talent, but also to Shane and the team that he's built around her, because she's going to Tokyo and she's making history again. And she's shown everyone what is possible with hard work, dedication, talent, and so on. So she's a terrific role model, but Shane has played such a huge part in this. And as you'll hear from him now, he's quite excited about what the possibility of Tokyo will bring. I have a habit on this podcast in recent times of claiming anyone with a tenuous link to West Cork as a West Cork person. So I'm delighted now to have West Cork's own Shane McCormack on the podcast, because your link to West Cork is incredibly strong, Shane. You are the coach for Phil Healy, who is flying out on Friday to the Tokyo Olympics to compete in 3 events, and she's putting West Cork on the map. And you're a big part of that story. So delighted to have you on the podcast, and I'm glad to bestow a West Cork title on you.
Sorry, what's that, Kieran? A West Cork?
A West Cork title. I'm glad to bestow a West Cork title on you.
Oh, I'll take any title that anybody's handing out titles, Kieran. I'll take them, you know. You're never a prophet on your own doorstep, so I'll go to somebody else's doorstep instead.
I know it's cheers for coming on, Shane, because I realise this week is an incredibly busy week for yourself and Phil. Like I said there, you're heading out to the Olympics this Friday. So let's go straight to it and chat about Phil Healy. She was officially announced last week as competing in 3 events at this Olympics, and she's the first Irish woman ever to compete in 3 events at the one Olympics. What's the significance of that and how important is it?
I think it speaks to the range that Phil has, like to make, like, look, it's anybody's dream, any athlete's dream is to go to the Olympics. It's the pinnacle of your sporting career. You know, the lucky ones get to go to 2 or 3, or like Rob Heffernan gets to go to 5, right? But the fact that Phil gets an opportunity to compete in 3 events, like the relay, the 200 and the 400, just shows she's at the moment, like on the world stage. You know, like, you know, we're very realistic as well. We know the chances of Phil, you know, being one of these medal hopes. It's not realistic given the just the depth and the competition that's out there, you know. But we have our own goals to you know, to get through rounds. She's definitely in shape to do something special with regards to, you know, the times that she can run at the moment, because we saw that recently at the national championships. She, you know, if the wind had been a little bit less, it would have been another PB national record type thing. So we're delighted to get the opportunity, Karen, to compete across 4 different days at an Olympics. And it really just speaks to how talented the girl is, you know.
It's going to be a pretty busy schedule for Phil once you get over to Tokyo. And I know you have a couple of weeks to acclimatise before she's in action. I think the relays are first up on the Friday, so she's part of the 4x400 mixed relay team. And then is it the Monday and the Tuesday, you have the 200 and the 400. So talk to me, Shane, about that busy schedule. How would you manage that to make sure you get the best out of Phil in all her events?
Yeah, so look, part of the plan at Nationals was to compete over the 3 days, you know, in Dublin, to sort of get her prepared for that. schedule in Tokyo. All right, the weather is going to be slightly more humid and temperature, and just the nervous, I suppose the nervous energy side of things will be a little bit elevated as well. But physically, she's more than capable of competing across a number of days, and she showed it back in 2018 at the European Championships in Berlin, where she competed over the 100, 200 and relay, and she competed 5 times in 6 days or something like that. Like, so yeah, look, the relay is probably Phil and everybody's best chance that's involved in relay of making it to an Olympic final. There's only 16 teams can compete, so they were one of the lucky few to qualify, which was an unbelievable feat itself. But because the mixed relay is on first, a lot of countries won't put out their best team, because you're going to have a lot of people that are focused on their individual events, where it's actually something that Ireland are focusing on, obviously given the opportunity at hand. So like, look, if an outside shot of a final, if they do it, she's in an Olympic final. If they don't, she's an extra day of rest over the weekend to prepare for the 200. She'll have 2.5 days really off between a heat and a relay. Look, you'd love to be in a final, but if they don't make it, then she's 2.5 days to recover to the 200, which is loads for Phil. And then based on how the 200 goes, she's back out for the 400 on the Tuesday heats. Hopefully having navigated around the 200, which would see her run again on the Monday evening after the 200 heats, and then out again on the Wednesday morning for the heat. So look, it's going to be tough, but look, like I said, the girl has only ever risen to any challenge she faced, and will go out fighting one way or the other, and we're just delighted to have the opportunity to do it.
You mentioned the humidity there, and the humidity and heat in Tokyo, I presume, will be a factor once the games start. And I know, Phil, she was telling me that she was in a hot tub from WIT for a week just to try and acclimatise with the heat and the 30, 40 degrees, and that'll help her. But the humidity, how much of a factor will that be over there, Shane?
Look, we've competed in it before. She always manages very well. Like, she competed World University Games 2017 in Taipei, and competed in 2019, albeit not at full fitness after breaking her foot in Doha. But she's not somebody that struggles with that. She adapts very well physically and physiologically. Her body seems to be able to handle it. And yeah, look, thanks to Pádraig Fanning and Lizzie Kent down in the Witt Arena, they were able to source a hot tub that they set up, and so she was able to follow some heat training protocols just to prepare her. But like 2 weeks in the holding camp is plenty as well to get the body ready for that. She's not somebody that needs an awful lot of time in a climate to adapt.
Looking at the track itself over in the Olympic Stadium, what do you know about the track, and how important a factor is that then?
We don't know a whole lot other than it's state of the art. It's a big stadium. It's going to be an empty stadium. As we've heard, no fans. I don't think that's going to be a factor. I don't think any athlete is going to let that affect them. They've probably been used to running in empty stadiums for quite a while now. So yeah, look, it's going to be state of the art. We know a little bit more about the training track in Fukuoka, where the holding camp is. Again, it's another big stadium track. Ireland are the only team using it, and will have use of it. So it's nice to have such a like a 60,000 seater stadium at your disposal to prepare for the 2 weeks pre Tokyo Olympics itself.
You mentioned there that Phil is in great shape at the moment. How have the last couple of weeks been? Because obviously you're trying to get Phil to peak at the Olympics, and there's all the excitement too. And you mentioned nervous energy, and there's obviously she's had to get her kit, and there's all the media duties and so on. So how have you balanced out everything, and how's she feeling now, just about before she flies out to Tokyo?
Yeah, look, it comes at you thick and fast, and the Nationals was a brilliant confidence boost, just to pull off the two wins, because the 200 was always going to be tough after 2 rounds of the 400, and it was billed as kind of the Phil and the Rashida, kind of the 2 fastest women in Irish history going head to head, really, I suppose, for the first time since Rashida broke Phil's old record. So like there was a lot of, there's a lot of noise comes with that, but it's not something Phil gets distracted with. And it was a great race. Fair play to the 2 girls, like they really went at it toe to toe, and so that was a nice boost. And then she just looks, she's very clever with her time. She doesn't take on too much with regards to media duties, but she also does like to do them as well, obviously, because without the media and the likes of yourself putting things out there, they don't get the profile, or they don't, and that leads into, you did a very good article on Phil and sponsorship and funding and things like that, and that's the tough side of sports, that it's the pennies that make the days meet, but no, she's good, looks brilliant, and I know, look, it's probably a good thing maybe that she's not at home, and that's not a bad thing, but like I'm sure there would have been a lot of people calling and all best of intentions, but I suppose that can be hard to deal with as well, and it'll be nice for her to go home and get, and she was able to spend a short bit of time in the city last weekend and see her family, so she got a lot of cards and well wishes and things like that. But you know yourself, in a build up, that can be a bit tiresome in itself. So it's probably no harm. She's kind of cocooned up in Waterford a little bit in her training group. But no, it's all good. It's positive. Like, look, if we can't enjoy the build up to an Olympics, sometimes, I think the good thing is she's experienced enough at this stage to have, she's been to a major every year, that she will enjoy this journey. Like, it's not going to be rabbit in the headlight type of situation. Like, it's not going to get to her. She will soak this up, and this is the pinnacle of her career.
You've coached her since 2013, Shane, and you've seen, like, I suppose you can't surprise you anymore. Like, so much about her. But that 200-meter final at the recent Nationals against Rashida, that was absolutely incredible. The two of them, it was a duel for the ages, and Phil won by 100 of a second. Like you said earlier, if the win limit was just that bit, a fraction smaller, it was a huge national record, and by some distance. How impressed were you by Phil that day and that performance that she pulled out?
Yeah, like we said, we'd always make a call on the 200, like kind of, the morning after, and see how she felt. So when she felt fine and she was up for it, I was like, okay, it's game on here. And it was a funny one, because when Phil ran the big PB in Belfast, and she'd only ran 200s this year, but she all seemed to get them in. One was in Malaga, one was in Belfast, and they all seemed to be in just like a pretty stiff wind on the bend. And it's not always conducive to fast 200. So she was running. She wasn't shooting the lights out. She was running 23.2s, but probably didn't reflect. I was seeing 22.8s and type of training, and we just didn't get it out. And then we ran one race, and we went abroad then. And I think in hindsight, I think we probably suffered a little bit from maybe travel fatigue, race fatigue after Belfast. But we also, just talking to a few physiologists of recent, we think maybe there was even a factor of the second vaccine injection. There seems to be some data there now that the athletes can be impacted like 10 days, 14 days after it, and that's not looking for excuses or anything, but Phil will be the first to admit how we ran abroad was just completely like not, in any shape or form reflective of the shape she was in. So it was kind of weird. We kind of knew we were in brilliant shape, but then that race didn't reflect it. And Henglo was a tough 400 for her, so we kind of came home three days rest after coming home. She was shooting the lights out again in training, and it was back on track. So like, we knew coming to nationals she was in really good shape, but again, it was just how could she, how fresh was she going to be after 2 400s, and she showed that she was fresh enough to run the way she did, like, and running from behind, which is not something that she normally does. Normally she's out in front, she's kind of hanging on. So it's up there with one of the best races she's ran, but probably one of the best sprint races ever in Ireland,
We've talked a lot before about just how good Phil is, and she's now won 14 senior national titles between indoors and outdoors, and what she's done for this sport is incredible. Like, she's taken it to a new level. She's raised the bar, and then you've others in like Rashida who are following her. Like, Phil has had such a positive impact on Irish athletics and even across Irish sport in general.
Yeah, one thing I like about what Phil does is she does it. She's able to switch it on at home, like, as in, like, she, Cork City Sports, where she broke the 200 record. She broke the 100 record in Dublin at a graded meeting, like national championships. She likes competing at home. No different than she likes competing abroad. Don't get me wrong, like, she'll run anywhere. But she's built her career in Ireland. Cork originally with Bandon, and then moving up to Waterford, and it just shows that it can be done here. And I'm not saying that there was anything out there that it can't be done here, like, but Derval's done it in the past here, a lot of like Eilish McSweeney, just to pick 2 Cork sprinters that were trailblazers before Phil, like, so it 100% can be done. There's some fantastic people out there that will help when you can identify them. There's colleges or great support networks, like WIT has been phenomenal to Phil. So 100%, like, I think she's going to bring a whole generation of sprinters, but I think she's going to open the doors for girls, especially, like, and they can see that, because like when Phil started off, she was a 100-meter runner. Now she's duking it out with the best on the world stage over 400s as well. So like it's anything is possible, and she brings the no BS attitude as well. You can hear in how she speaks that, like she said, if I have a job to do, I'm going to do it. Like, and there's just that, there's a level of cop on there that she's able to filter out the information that she needs. She knows the job that she has to do. And I think that's important. I think it's not getting caught up in, it's very easy these days to get caught up in social media and worry about what people think about you. And like sometimes you just have to, back yourself and go through the bad years, and I think that's, that's where the, people like, the coach comes in. It's very important, like that, somebody that can stand by you through the good days and the bad days, but she's definitely shown what's possible. And like I said, Bandon was a key club, or a key, I suppose, phase in her life. Liz Coomey, hat tip to Liz there, like produced, and still producing some fantastic sprinters, jumpers, not just Liz, there's other coaches in Bandon and there's other coaches all around Ireland, doing the same thing. And there's Phil Healy's everywhere. That's the thing, they're everywhere. They just have to learn to stick with it, and put the head down and not get caught up in any of the kind of the noise that can be very distractful to because it is a hard sport. It's a very tough sport. It's a lonely sport, but it can be done. And I think that's what Phil will do. She'll give confidence to people out there, that may be thinking about giving up, or that they're not good enough, or like, Phil only started shooting the lights out, not even shooting the lights out, but started showing maybe her talent when she was 18, which is definitely a late developer when it comes to kind of, sprint talent in Ireland,
And this is, like you told me before, Shane, this is not an overnight success story. This is years of hard work, training, dedication, commitment from both you and Phil and the whole team involved to get her to where she is now. People will see Phil now as this 3-time Olympian, but this story has been in the making for years and years and years. So you touched on a great point there, that it takes hard work, it takes commitment, it takes dedication, and Phil ticks all those boxes.
There's no easy way around it, Kieran. And it's easy, like you hear, like I don't know how many people you would hear, making comments about hard work and dedication, and it kind of, they're words, and sometimes they don't resonate because they don't portray reality, right? But like, simple fact of the matter is that is what it is. It is just, it's been able to train consistently, and obviously, touch wood, not getting injured is a big part of that, right? And it's consistency, a smart plan, a bit of positivity, a lot of positivity, right? A lot of belief in what you're doing, right? Because at the start, it's not going to be all roses, right? But it's been able to back year after year after year together, and seeing the improvements slowly, improvements. And at some point, those improvements will turn into a big jump, like we could probably pinpoint a season 2018 as a big, huge breakthrough. But up to that point, it was, slow improvement. So, it's about turning up, doing the work, and going home and recovering smart. And there's nothing fancy to it, man. It really is just, being dedicated, being as I said about her before, like she probably is a student of the sport in some regards as well, like,
And obviously Cork is going to be the highlight so far, Shane, and it's incredible that you've got to this juncture and in 3 events. But it's one step on the story. This isn't the top of the mountain. This isn't the ceiling. Like, Phil is only 26 years of age, like, and you think about what the future holds post Tokyo. It's incredibly exciting.
Oh, 100%. Like, and even in the 400, she's still only a rookie. Like, I could go out and look. My old comrade Jeremy Lyons, brilliant on the stats as well. Like, but I could turn it to him. How many 400s has Phil ran that he could turn? It's not more than 20. Like, it's it could be 25. I'm not sure, but it's not a huge amount of 400 she's ran. So the ceiling is still very much, there's a lot there. The bucket is half empty still there. Like, there's a lot of progression she can make in that event, because she's still only she's still only developing the back end of her race, which is that that strength endurance. And it's funny, like the start, like people would be going, oh, she's brilliant. Phil, she can get, to 2017, she was probably getting the 320, and then dying off in the last 80. And, you'd read a few things. No, she can't finish a fourth. Of course she can't finish a fourth. She was a 100 meter, 200 meter runner that had never done 400 meter work. So you can't overnight that. Like that's just, you have to put the work in. You have to be smart about it. And you can't fast forward it, it comes more naturally to some people, but for Phil, it wasn't natural. And we had to figure out what worked for her. So, look, 26, next 3 years is a roller coaster of major competitions as well, between indoors and outdoors. And it's only 3 years to the next Olympics. So I think the roadmap is there. It's really exciting. It's going to bring her, to many, please God, major internationals again around the world. And, Phil will go out fighting no matter what, you know what I mean? So, and again, she'll only be 29 by the next Olympics. So who knows after that?
Before I let you go, one final question. Phil, go back a couple of years, 100, 200, that's where she was making the headlines. Why did you decide then to stretch her range and go to the 400? What did you see that you felt that Phil could make an impact at 400?
Yeah, that's a good question. There's not really a simple. I wouldn't say it's not a simple answer, but it was a little bit of an accident. So 2017. So I was remote coaching Phil for the first 4 years, where she was in UCC, and obviously I was in Wexford and Waterford. But and it worked. It didn't work great. It wasn't ideal, but it worked, right? Phil had some great success in those 4 years. But because she was doing nursing originally before she switched to IT. Her second year in college, I think it would have been her second year or third year, she was doing an awful lot of work on the wards, right? A lot of 12-hour shifts. And just, it was 2015, second year in nursing. It just wasn't conducive to being an international sprinter, you know what I mean? And she would have lost a lot of fitness that year. Probably, got a little bit unconditioned, just through no fault of anybody other than she didn't have the time, couldn't put the training in. And a lot, I would have backed off an awful lot of hard work at that time, because she was on her feet more for 12 hours. It was very hard. You can't push, you can't burn the candle at both ends. So, for better or for worse, it was a year of hard lessons. But there were lessons that we probably eyes wide open knew that were coming. So what we did going into 2016 was say, look, first things first, let's go back to the main principles of fitness, strength, speed, and fitness was one that was probably lacking. And I said to her originally, we used to have some great chats on flights, coming home from races, where more often than not that year, she still managed to go to the European under-23s that year and things like that. But we used to have, good chats on these flights. We'd figure stuff out. But I said, look, we go at this. Maybe we'll train you to be a good 300-meter runner, you know what I mean, and see how that goes. So, Phil's first 100 was actually the end of that summer, when she was not in any shape to run a 400. But we were in Belgium. We were on a trip. It was kind of an end of season thing, and it was lashing rain. It was a terrible track. I think she only ran 57 seconds. I think she's running 51s now, 52s regularly. But it was just the manner in how she ran it. I said to her, just don't try to shoot the lights out. Don't gun it. Just get around, nice and relaxed, be smooth. And it's only 57 seconds, but there was something about how she ran it. I was like, there was a rhythm about how she ran, parking the time. So that winter, we just moved, and we kind of upped the distance, just worked back on the basic principles of fitness, got her stronger. And slowly, she ran 53 something that year, not really training for fours. She ran 53.5, and that was like, okay, there's something here. There's something here. And for the next couple of years, we didn't fully commit to fours. And look, people said to me before, if you want to be a 400-meter runner, you really do have to commit. So it was probably only the winter just gone, after the post-COVID, the first COVID, I suppose, lockdown and into September last year, that we really, really targeted the 400, because we knew there was European indoors coming, and we knew that there was a good chance that Phil could run well there. So this is the first year we've sort of really, really committed to the 400. And look, by default, Phil's 200 will improve as well. It always has with her 400-meter work. So that's a kind of a highly convoluted, long way around the house's way of telling you that, it was it was out of I suppose a so-called bad year, you know, a year of lessons, a year of disappointment, a year of, you know, Phil, you know, there would have been tears after bad race and things like that. I don't know if that season hadn't happened, would we have ever moved to fours, you know? So it's just, look, I suppose it's a lesson. There's a lesson in everything, but that just shows that, like, look, even when you're at the bottom of the, you know, the bottom of the pile of you know, and you're feeling kind of, geez, there's no future this, and I'm not good, and I've lost all, you know, I can't even run, I'm not fast. Out of that comes, you know, this sort of journey that we went on after that, you know what I mean? So there's always lessons. There's lessons in everything. It's being able to identify what went wrong, why you went wrong, and then how to fix that. That's key. And
it's been an incredible journey you've been on, Shane, together since 2013. Just want to thank you again for coming on the podcast. Like I said, I know you're so busy this week, and to wish yourself and Phil the very best of luck in Tokyo. You've put West Cork on the map, and everyone is so proud of you down here, Shane. So thanks from all of us here, and pass on our best wishes to Phil, and we'll all be supporting you in Tokyo.
No, much appreciated, Kieran. And again, look, you've been fantastic supporters of Phil and myself and what she does. So appreciate all of that and all the support from the various different people in West Cork. And we will do the area proud.
Great stuff there from Shane McCormack. And of course, we'll be following Phil Healy as close as any other outlet in the country, closer even, throughout the Olympic Games. So make sure to keep in touch with the Southern Star online, in print and on social media. Now, before we look ahead to this week's paper, we're going to hear a quick message from our sponsors, Access Credit Union, about their brilliant new Funding Dreams campaign.
Hi, I'm Fiona Kangataran and I'm an illustrator from Kinsale. During lockdown, wanting to keep myself busy and just having a mad year, I felt like I needed to do something different, and I actually went back and picked up an old hobby where it left off, and it was a passion of mine since I was a kid. It was drawing. I made personalised cards for each and every one of my friends, as each and every birthday and celebration and event that got cancelled, postponed, or just something that we couldn't meet up in person to celebrate. And I wanted it to mark something special, that not just that I remembered the date, but just that I see them and I love them and I care, and of course I miss them so much. And I think we're all going through that all at the same time. And so when I shared those images online, it resonated with so many people, and I didn't realize the positive impact that it would have. And it was really powerful, and it was this immediate validation that I was doing something right, that this was a sign of where I should be taking my own career. And then when Access Credit Union approached me about their Funding Dreams campaign, it just felt like fate. And they wanted their community to be represented. They wanted people to be seen, and they wanted to bring people together. And that's what the credit union does. And I just couldn't be prouder to be a part of this project. And at the same time, it's actually made my dream come true of being a paid illustrator. So I couldn't be more grateful that it's going in this direction.
Before we preview this week's paper, we just have a little teaser clip to share with you all. Over the last number of months, the Southern Star has been running a new digital series called The Big Story. So far, we've looked at the Macroom bypass and tourism in West Cork, but now the big story is getting the Star Sport treatment. Kieran, before we play a clip from the upcoming episode, you might just give us a quick idea of what it's all about.
So what we've done here is we've gone inside the metal factory that is Skibbereen Rowing Club. We talk about this club so much in this podcast and in the paper over the last couple of years. It's an incredible club. 7 members of Skibbereen Rowing Club are in Tokyo right now for the Olympic Games. And we have Fintan McCarthy and Paul O'Donovan. We've Aoife Casey, we've Emily Hegarty, we've Gary O'Donovan, we've Lydia Heafy, and of course we've Coach Dominic Casey. So for one club tucked away in Skibbereen and West Cork to be sending 7 members to the Olympics is incredible, but it's nothing new. This club has made history over the years. It's the most successful Irish rowing club in history. It's possibly the greatest Irish sports club in history when you consider that it's pulling from a small area just outside Skibbereen, and it has created Olympic medalists, world champions, European champions, and even this weekend just gone, a young rower from the club, Finn O'Reilly, won a silver medal at the World Under-23s and Finn is 18. So that shows that this club, okay, you have your Fintan McCarthy's and your Paul O'Donovan's and your Aoife Casey's, but you've talent coming through too, like Finn O'Reilly. So what we did for this is I went down to the rowing club and I spent an evening with Denise Walsh, who herself is a former world finalist, European medalist, and a top international rower. And she gave us a tour of this club. So we got to see inside, peek behind the curtains and look inside Skibbereen Rowing Club to see the club that molds champions, that shapes the best rowers in the world, and just get a taste for what goes on in this incredible club. So I had a very enjoyable time with Denise. She was a brilliant host, a brilliant tour guide, and we got to go out in the water up and down the River Island, which is an important part of this. So just say to anyone listening to this podcast, definitely check out this when it drops on Tuesday. It's well worth watching, because over the following weeks, we will see these Skibbereen rowers that will have lifted weights in the gym, that we'll see, that will have pulled on the same rowing machines, that will have been in the same boats. We'll see them putting Ireland sport on the world map in Tokyo. So, like I said, this is definitely worth checking out. This is the rowing club that is also home to Dominic Casey, the greatest Irish rowing coach of his time. This is the club that takes in young boys and young girls from all around the locality, all around the different townlands, and equips them with the talents, the skills, the self-belief and the confidence to go out on the water and to take on the best in the world. This is the rowing club that has transformed Irish rowing beyond all recognition in the last couple of years. This is the greatest sports club in Ireland today. I think it's time we got to know this club a little bit better.
There's Paul O'Donovan in the stroke seat. He is pulling like a dog now. Gary behind him. The bales are lifting out of the water. They are really pulling through.
Big David Attenborough vibes from you there, Kieran. I think you have a new career in broadcasting awaiting you. Really excellent piece to camera there, Darren Frell. Watch your back. But as Kieran said, that's going to be released across all the Southern Stars various platforms on Tuesday. So if you want to watch it on YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you want to listen to it in audio format, subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Or if you just want to do it the old-fashioned way, just go to www.thesouthernstar.ie and it will be plastered all over our homepage from Tuesday morning. Now, Kieran, time is against us, unfortunately, so we can't go into too much depth about this week's paper. So maybe just give us a few of the top-line things that people can look forward to on Thursday.
It's a pretty hectic time for sport right now, so this week's sports section is crammed. We have 2 pages on the Beamish Cup semi-finals that were played last weekend, and the Beamish Cup final is on this Sunday at 3 o'clock in Turner's Cross, and it's a repeat of last year's final. It's Dunmanway Town against Clonakilty. So check out the Star for the match reports from both semi-finals. Also, we have an interview with Newcestown Camogie star Ciara O'Sullivan, the 19-year-old who's been turning heads with the Cork senior Camogie team, and Cork are out in the championship against Dublin this Sunday. So check that out. A great interview with Ciara. Can't go through this podcast without mentioning Fineen Wycherley. We lauded Gavin Coombs last week for making his Ireland debut. Fineen Wycherley made his Ireland senior debut against the USA last Saturday night. I caught up with Damien Hicks from Bantry Bay Rugby Club, where Fineen learned his trade, to see what this moment means for the club. And just tell me a small bit more about Fineen. So that's well worth checking out. Keith Cronin made his comeback last weekend too. There's soccer, there's bowling, there's GA, there's ladies football, there's footballers, everything in this week's sports section. And just quickly, I have to flag too, in next week's sports section, we have a 24-page Olympic special coming out, and this is well worth. This will be the best preview you will read of the Olympics when it comes to Phil Healy and all our rowers, future rowers with them all. Never before seen photos of our Olympians. We explain why Paul O'Donovan is the greatest Irish rower of all time. Fintan McCarthy is the man with the plan, and we tell you why. Aoife Casey, Emily Hegarty, they're all in it. So definitely check out next week's Southern Star sports section, because, Jack, I think it'll be our biggest ever sports section.
Yeah, really exciting. I think it's nearly going to be bigger than the actual main paper, which will be quite the feat for a sports section to be the bigger part of the paper. So exciting times for everyone in Team Star Sport. But anyway, let's wrap things up for this week. Thanks for listening to the Star Sport podcast. We'll be back at the same time next week with a Munster final preview. We'll also have the Inside Skibbereen Rowing Club feature. So keep an eye out for 2 podcasts next week. If you enjoy these shows, please make sure to rate, review and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Slán Tonga.